Today we're going to talk about how the Supreme Court now factors into the November election, quickly becoming among the top issues, and I've got quite the interesting interview this week. I sit down with RFK Jr. in a pretty contentious back and forth about why Trump's biggest donor is funding his campaign, whether he would sign a nationwide abortion ban, and I press him on the dangers of vaccine skepticism. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. When the next president takes office in January of 2025, Clarence Thomas will be 76 years old, Samuel Alito will be 74, Sonia Sotomayor will be 70, John Roberts will be 69. If the person getting sworn in is Donald Trump, then I can tell you with some modest degree of certainty that two of those justices will be replaced by judges at least 25 years younger than them. If it's Joe Biden, then we're virtually guaranteed at least one replacement, Sonia Sotomayor, while the conservatives will try to hold on. Although, then again, there have been a number of judges die on the bench unexpectedly, from Antonin Scalia to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The point is that what happens from 2025 to 2028 in this next presidential term will shape the court for a generation. Put simply, if Donald Trump wins, we may have a 7-2 court filled with young conservative justices that will be there for decades, and we will have no recourse. If Biden wins, it's actually possible we could quite literally flip control of the court to the liberals' favor. None of this, by the way, is to say that this election won't focus on abortion. I think realistically that'll still be the top issue that voters turn out based on, or democracy itself, another issue that I think is going to be top of mind. But what's becoming clear is that all of that, abortion, democracy, fair maps, birth control, same-sex marriage, all of it hinges on the court. And that's come into especially stark focus lately with the fact that Samuel Alito was caught displaying flags in front of multiple homes that were sympathetic to the insurrectionists on January 6th. And so the notion that this guy is right now presiding over a decision regarding presidential immunity for Trump on January 6th is so far beyond the bounds of what's okay. And what's worse, he's not even the only one. Clarence Thomas is just as compromised, with his wife literally complicit in actual efforts to overturn the election. And those are just the people too stupid or too corrupt or both to show any discretion. This Supreme Court as a whole is not just compromised, it is broken. But we have a very important and very small window in the next presidential term to not watch it slip away for the rest of our lifetimes at worst, and to actually replace some very corrupt judges at best. And look, I make these videos every day. I try to make an affirmative case for Joe Biden because I do think he's been the most progressive and most accomplished president of our lifetimes. We've got the American Rescue Plan, which saved the U.S. economy after COVID, the Inflation Reduction Act, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, which has led to a boom in American manufacturing, the infrastructure law, the gun safety law, codifying marriage equality into federal law, removing cannabis as a Schedule I drug, forgiving billions of dollars in student loan debt, adding 15 million jobs, presiding over a record stock market, the longest stretch of sub 4% unemployment in half a century. By any measure, this presidency is a massive success. But I also understand that for a lot of people, Biden isn't cutting it. I understand that a lot of people are unhappy with how he's dealt with Israel and Gaza. I understand a lot of people are unhappy about the cost of groceries and housing. I understand a lot of people are unhappy about his age. Everyone is 100% entitled to their qualms about how he's presided. But I want to be clear. If the alternative, Donald Trump, is elected, that would mean that the court is untouchable for decades. And that'll have massive implications for abortion and contraception protections, for fair maps, for gerrymandering, for the Voting Rights Act, for Trump's own prosecutions and this insane notion of presidential immunity, and for democracy as a whole. Joe Biden isn't perfect, but we are kidding ourselves if we are not recognizing what's at stake if Trump manages to win in November. The court will be the least of our problems, but it will be a massive problem, and it will plague us for the rest of our lives. So, if we want any hope of rebalancing this dangerous imbalance where insurrection sympathizers are literally ruling on cases related to the insurrection, then November is our one and only shot. Elections aren't just a referendum on the past, they are a vote in the future. And the difference here could not be more stark. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for at least two young justices in the mold of Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, and therefore permanent Republican control of the court and everything that comes with it. A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for judges who will protect abortion rights, who will protect contraception, who will protect same-sex marriage, who will protect fair maps, who will protect the Voting Rights Act, who will protect democracy. So regardless of what your litmus test issue is in this election, remember that the last word on adjudicating those issues will be the Supreme Court. So cast your vote accordingly. Coming up is a preview of my interview with RFK Jr., but just a quick note here, my new book, Shameless, is available now for pre-order. If you want to purchase it, which I really hope you will, please check the link on this screen or in the post description of this video, or visit briantylercohen.com/book. I'm really proud of it, and I really think you'll enjoy reading it. Okay, here's a preview of my interview with RFK Jr. One of your top donors is Timothy Mellon, who was Trump's top donor in 2020. He's given $25 million to a super PAC supporting you, and he's given $25 million to a Trump-affiliated super PAC, which certainly does give the appearance that Trump's donors want you on the ballot to serve as a spoiler candidate on his behalf. So what's your relationship to Timothy Mellon, and why is he infusing your campaign with so much money?
We get, I said this at the beginning of the campaign, Brian, that I want to run a campaign that appeals to both sides. I want to run a campaign that makes Republicans forget they're Republicans and Democrats forget they're Democrats. And everybody remember that they're Americans. So I'm getting money from Democrats, Republicans. I welcome money from people who support President Trump. I have people on our staff who came from the Trump campaign. I have people on our staff.
I understand all of that, but if he's giving money at the same time, $25 million is no small sum. If he's giving $25 million to Trump and to you, and this is a Trump-aligned donor, and he's your biggest donor to super PACs right now, do you have any relationship with this person? Do you know why he's giving you this massive amount of money? Because clearly this isn't throwing his support behind you if he's also supporting Trump at the same time.
You would have to ask Timothy Mellon that with the super PAC. I'm not allowed to coordinate at all with the super PAC. But
do you have a relationship with him?
With Tim Mellon, I've met Tim Mellon twice.
Okay, and that was enough to. There's no other inclination as to why he's donating.
Like I said, I welcome money from everybody. I don't think that. Listen, I'm more.
You can understand how you can understand how.
Brian, I'm not sure what you're getting at, but President Trump. I'm running against President Trump. I have been a huge critic of President Trump's. I think he was a terrible president. I think he gave us the lockdowns. I think he shifted $4 trillion into this new oligarchy of super rich billionaires. I think he ran up the debt higher than any president in history. He presided over a chronic disease epidemic. He promised to get us out of the wars, and he has, he brought John Bolton, who's the center of the war machine, to run the NSA. He was a terrible president. I'm running against him, so I'm not sure what point you're trying to get at. But I think the point is obvious just from a layman's perspective. If you have a Trump donor who's also propping up the super PAC affiliated with you, that it would suggest that person wants you on the ballot because he would perceive it as deriving benefit for Donald Trump. Well, that's what you say. I don't think that is obvious. I think maybe that.
Okay,
here's what I believe from.
Well, let me ask this.
Here's what I believe from talking to Tim Mellon. I think Tim Mellon would prefer me to be president of the United States because he thinks that I would make a better president, and that if I'm not going to be president, that he would prefer President Trump to President Biden. Oh, I have a lot of donors who are in the same state, but would prefer, but Biden's their second choice.
I understand that. I understand that.
By the way, the national polls, every single poll that has measured my favorability rating has shown that my favorability rating is much higher than President Trump's or President Biden's. So most Americans would rather vote for me. The reason they're voting for President Trump or President Biden is out of fear, because they feel by voting for me, they're throwing their vote away. But they'd rather vote for me. And I think Tim Mellon is in that category. He thinks that I'd be a better president of the United States, but he's hedging his bet by also betting on Donald Trump.
On this issue of spoiler candidates, your own running mate has admitted that your odds are slim. A senior advisor to your race has said, "I don't think the Kennedy campaign and the Trump campaign are enemies. It's us against the Democrats." These comments come after your campaign's former New York staffer. I'm sorry?
Who was that?
I'm going to play that audio right now.
And it looks like in this instance with RFK, he's going to probably take a lot of the votes away from Biden, correct? I mean, that's what you're looking at here.
Well, yeah, that's true. I don't think that the Kennedy campaign and the Trump campaign are enemies, but we're all about America, and we know that it's us against the Democrats. Either way it goes.
I know what the media has done is it's taken people who have nothing to do with anything to do with the senior management of our campaign.
Well, and that inclusive of, there was the New York staffer who gave a presentation that the goal of the candidacy was to stop President Biden. But regardless, voters aside,
and that staffer was fired, and that staffer was not
But voters aside, why is it so hard to convince those closest to you and those working for you that you're not a spoiler in this race? I mean, these are people who were on your campaign, regardless of whether they still are.
Well, those issues have nothing to do with spoiler, and the latter. You know, you're putting out fires faster, or you're lighting fires faster than I can put them out, but they're fires that are brush fires. The first
these are people
the only person that you've just quoted is somebody who was a contract block coordinator who was gathering signatures for us in New York. And the mainstream media, of course, which is trying to discredit our campaign, interviews somebody at low-level contract staffer and gets an opinion from them and then attributes it to that campaign. Do you think that's fair? And that staffer, by the way, was let go because of that. So, that's not journalism. That's just...
Well, I mean, I only work with the information that I have, and these are people who work.
Well, yeah, but you need to, part of being a journalist is actually verifying and checking information rather than just throwing stuff at the wall.
I mean, these are people who worked for the campaign. But let's move on. I want to talk about the issue of abortion.
We have 100,000 volunteers.
I understand. I do want to talk about abortion because
we don't screen them. We don't screen anybody for their opinions or their political affiliations. There's no organization.
I do want to talk about abortion.
That kind of political screening of people who volunteer for them.
To watch the full interview with RFK Jr., click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also listen to the audio version of this episode by clicking that link on the screen. And of course, to see more of my content, including interviews like this one, please make sure to subscribe.